Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Amosi Thurlow scale,
or MOTS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello, and welcome back to the Lost Signals Reviews and Discusses Film and Television. And tonight we are going the distance, and we are going for speed. I am your host, Scott Thurlow. I'm here with Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Go Speed Racer, go Speed Racer.
Go, and Stephen Amosi.
I side with Racer X.
Mm-hmm. And we are going to review the new, somewhat biopic, Ford versus Ferrari, which we've just seen, and is a possible Oscar contender, which is like the main reason we're doing this anyways, but it may or may not be. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Jonathan Ian Manzer, what is the plot of Ford versus Ferrari?
Well, Ford v Ferrari. Please.
Sure. So, my bad.
So, Henry Ford the second is important. He's no Henry Ford.
Not the original Henry Ford.
Kind of feels something about being insulted by Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
Italians are making a fool of him.
Tingling in his loins.
He gets a Texan-style Matt Damon.
A modern-day cowboy.
And Christian Bale playing British Super Dave Osborne to build him a car that can beat the Ferrari. But these two intrepid, middle-aged mechanics...
They're seasoned vets, I guess we'll say.
...are in conflict with these kind of scumbag Europeans and Italian, swarthy Italians.
The Euro trash in the Americans' eyes.
Yeah. And the bureaucratic Americans. And but all they want to really do is race and get that high that you get when you get over 7,000 RPMs.
Mm-hmm. It's over 7,000.
7,000 is when you hit the blessed zone, the danger zone.
Yeah. Not long after they get hired by Henry Ford, they beat Ferrari because there is literally no tension in this fucking movie.
I will say that this movie wasn't aimed at me.
Yes, we can agree upon that.
I'm not a sports movie kind of guy, and this movie hits a lot of middling sports movie beats. Nor am I a car guy, and this is a masturbatory fantasy for people who are into old, Fords.
It certainly can be.
And, but for a movie that I had no interest in whatsoever, not only I'm not interested in the history of it, but I'm not interested in either the genre, it, for the most part, kept my attention. It seemed that a lot of the elderly boomers enjoyed the heck out of it.
And I say, okay, boomers,
so
I guess.
Think it was I think it was okay. And so I'm probably going to give it a 2 because I don't think it's a great movie by any means, but I was rarely bored throughout it, except some of the race scenes went on a little bit long, but I tend to find that in sports films. I'm not really invested in the narrative. I don't really care if Ferrari beats Ford or Ford beats Ferrari. But I thought that actually Matt Damon and Christian Bale carried the weight of this movie, but narratively, it seems like a standard. You're going to have your these two guys fighting against the system. They don't believe in them, but they rise up and they end up winning in the end and beating the records.
Yeah. Spoiler: Ford wins.
So that's, of course, the reason you mentioned tension earlier is we know what happened. It's a foregone conclusion. It's literally history.
I had no idea the history. There was still very little tension.
Fair enough. I guess I did. So it depends how much you know. But I'll say this. I'll back you up on a couple of points. When we walked out of the film, I said, in the same way that Ford Motor Company itself assembly line produced cars, I feel like this movie was somewhat assembly line produced to appeal to an audience who isn't quite in. I'm not in that demographic for the most part, and I get that. my dad is gonna fucking love this movie. I feel like it might be true of a number of in these cases. But yes, I also agree to back it up for what it was perfectly fine. I'm looking at like a solid okay 2 as well. It wasn't weak. It wasn't super strong. It told the story that happened, and I guess that was fairly accurate. Although, Steve, you said there were some, like, they took some liberties, of course.
Yeah.
They always will in terms of this. But yeah, I did feel myself thinking, like, it's dragging a little bit towards the end. Or it could have been, like, I think, just edit it a little bit tighter. But for the most part, it was fine, and I'll probably back up a 2.
At one point in my life, someone tried to explain to me the appeal of NASCAR. And
even these guys all hate NASCAR though.
But the idea of watching
car culture in general.
And I don't get it. And like this thing is, there's so many shots of Christian Bale in the driver's seat, looking tense, that I'm like, okay, I get it, and I'm not invested.
Yeah. I don't know. This is the story of like Christian Bale telling you what's happening, telling you, the audience, what's happening, a la talking to himself. There's so much of that when he's like alone in the car. He's like explaining what's going on around him through like colorful language, and I was like, a lot of that I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I don't know. I guess they needed something to break the like just engine noises or whatever. Sure. But
I'll get to the engine noises later.
I found this. This felt like what was the Ryan Gosling, Neil Armstrong movie, First Man?
Yes.
That was what it was called?
Yep.
This movie reminded me of that.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
In that it wasn't very good. And it was okay. Yeah. And it was
I think they were completely different movies they're different, not good, and they're not good in different ways.
For different reasons.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It kind of felt like a
First Man was 50s not good. This was 60s not good.
Oh yeah.
So there's the difference there.
You got me on that one.
Mine goes bum bum bada bum bum. And it's different.
But yeah, I mean it was like I shouldn't have said that. I don't want to say it's not good. It's just not very good. Which is what a lot of people are saying about it.
It's okay, it's fine.
It is
not great, right?
very middling film to me. Like
I mostly agree.
They're trying to make this they're trying to tell this story, and I think they thought they were being real exciting about it, but it wasn't that exciting. They
or at least
killed,
to us.
They killed all the excitement, like, long before it should have been. But, like, you know, the race against Ferrari at the end, like, I have to give it, I cannot, like, there's no way I could even contemplate giving this a 3, because at the end of the movie, the last Ferrari car, half of the title of this fucking movie is out of the movie, like, 3/4 of the way through the race. He runs this whole, like, last 45 minutes of the movie without the, like, quote-unquote main antagonist that is V'ing them.
So if it was Ford versus Ferrari versus Christian Bale, it would have been more accurate.
Versus Leo Beebe.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I'm going to give it a soft 2. I was even contemplating giving it a 1, but I think I can.
Yeah, I think like
muster up a 2. It was all right for most of it.
That's a good cap off. That's my final thought. And like, it's softer too, but sure, it did its job. It's fine. It got in and got out, and it's not weak, but it's not strong. So leaving with all of us with 2s, it looks like.
Yeah.
All right. So Steve, why don't you go on to then the themes?
I don't know. Don't have a bad heart, because then somebody else has to race in your place.
Broken ticker, I think.
Yeah.
To use the parlance of 1964.
I guess this is like supposed to like gin up some like pride in American cars, or like the resurgence of Ford, right? But except for Ford himself in this movie is just shitty, and the only reason
doubts.
The only reason
him.
is that they do anything is because Shelby has to fucking make him feel like less of a man every chance he gets, so that he actually like concedes to
that's what you do in America, of course.
Apparently.
Especially 1960s.
I have to say I was shocked because I went in thinking this would be an incredibly jingoistic movie.
Yeah.
And it really, I mean, like, it was almost offensively 1960s cliched of like American, what people would imagine Americans to be like, corporate tools in suits, and you had like the
Mad Men, the race car team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I had to bring that up earlier. But no, sorry, do you have something else to add on to that for themes?
No.
So here's like a funny thought that I think you guys might enjoy. During 1964, these guys working on winning a race. Other people working on putting people on the moon and so forth. So
yes.
like, yeah, I get it. It's like, yes, of course, you can't avoid the nostalgia for the era, as you said. It's like, oh, remember.
I have to go on a tangent quickly. Did you see the trailer beforehand of where the Russians win the space race?
For all mankind.
Yes.
No,
I believe is the name of it.
we need to put women on, be the first to put women on the moon, and then Dream On starts playing. I thought that, I don't know if they recognize the irony.
No.
That was, oh my god!
I didn't even notice
just
that.
A very like I guess that's an Apple TV thing. They got a bunch of shows that had just came out.
Which I don't even know why they would show that at the fucking theaters. But anyway,
because Apple
do have
spent a lot of money.
I thought for a second that this film was going to go into, hey, uncouth genius, if you sell out to the good American corporations, you'll be part of the team, and you can still be like the winner. And then you get to second place. And I thought that was like a nice bittersweet twist.
Yeah, but they're still paying him $200 a day to go do his dream job.
But it hurts his pride, is what he's saying.
I don't think it hurt his pride. I think his pride was fully intact.
We don't know the fallout of the actions because he died immediately afterwards.
Also, he didn't die immediately afterwards. That was
In the movie
later.
timeline,
Yeah.
he died
They literally
immediately
cut to him going and test race and exploding after he wins the race. So I don't know what to tell you. It's a condensed timeline there and all, but yeah. So I don't know what to make of themes either. It's obvious what they're going for, and I feel as if their intention is clear enough and got there. I don't know if it's all that
spunky American ingenuity.
Yeah, we want to,
but also spunky Italian ingenuity because Ferrari came off as almost a mad scientist.
Yeah, Ferrari was the team.
He's an eccentric European building weird cars that win races.
I'm giving themes a 0.
All right. I mean, I'm probably leaning towards it. Not that I thought they were bad or saying something that doesn't make sense or anything like that.
What were they saying?
That's what I mean. It's just hey, as you said, it's
hey, old man.
Yeah.
Do you remember your youth?
It's kind of masturbatory.
Watch this,
for sure.
Watch this car movie.
Remember when America, they all, the Ford company got together and they said they stuck it to the Europeans, they stuck it to the Italians, right? Okay. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's there because as part of history, but I don't know if that's really a message per se, or that says or resonates, has any relevance right now for that. So it's there as part of the story. And again, I don't think they necessarily mishandled anything, but it doesn't really amount to much.
Is the theme when you're brilliant and you throw in with a huge company, they're gonna fuck you?
Yeah.
I mean, I
that's
guess
kind of always been true. Maybe
that's a better theme, I guess.
Yes,
but
I
still
agree.
not all that convincing.
But they didn't
to me.
really fuck him, and like you said, he was still satisfied until he died.
Exactly.
Shortly thereafter.
We never saw him live long enough to regret his actions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly,
What do you think?
Someone said it was masturbatory. And
You did, and I'm backing that up.
I might have said that.
Someone said that.
You let off with that, and I think it stays here too.
But this thing is, I don't know what the point of this film was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think that says it pretty much all.
Says it a 0?
0 for you, officially you with that.
I don't want to give it it, but I can't think of any good reason to give it a 1.
Right? I was going to err on the side of a 0. Again, it's not bad. It's not like they're saying something offensive or anything like that, or that we can't even understand what they're saying, but it just doesn't amount to much because of the nature of the history of the story, I would say.
All right, I'm going to...
Okay.
I'm going to try to parse this out in my mind.
Okay.
So you have Christian Bale's character, Ken something?
Ken Miller.
Ken Miles.
Ken Miles.
He can drive for miles and
Not
miles.
Miles.
He doesn't play along. He goes his own way. He's brilliant, probably the smartest engineer there. And he learns to play along, gets second place, goes his own way, and then dies immediately.
In a blaze of glory.
I'm not sure what
That's
his
supposed to
arc
say.
was supposed to...
Nobody in this movie has an arc.
guess he does. So it's
well.
We're coming.
He does allow them. He swallows his pride a little bit at the end of the race and allows everybody to come up and with him, and immediately gets fucked over for doing that. So he goes. Theoretically, he goes back to how he was when he started the movie because he was proven,
on his own terms.
It was proven that changing as a character is bad for you.
I think he literally said he can change in character. I'm pretty sure he said that to his wife.
But he did change. But for what reason?
Change, saw what the world was like and went back
and was like, nah, fuck that.
And then died. I kind of like that, but I don't think that was their intention. I'm going to go with 0.
Sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
I tempted.
No. I mean, I like it, but I think where we stand, it's looking like a 0 on the thematic front, which will bring me to antagonists, which I'm not sure what to make of either. Like, of course, what it says on the tin is that it's going to be 2 companies going head to head in a specific sport and trying to outwit each other, outdesign each other, get the best team. Which, yeah, Ford essentially did that. But were they really antagonized by anything specifically? Now, my argument is that Shelby and Miles together as good friends and being a team and trying to build the best car are antagonized by the corporate suit guy, which I don't remember his name in the BB.
Leo BB.
Right.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
The classic Netanyahu a la 1964 Ford upper VP of whatever marketing directing. Right. So, he's your standard corporate sycophant model 103A.
Yeah, he's literally a villain from, an old Adam Sandler's film.
Yes, you're right. And it was funny. I thought that during we were watching the movie, I was like, this is the guy from fucking Happy Gilmore, or Bailey Madison.
Yeah.
Jeez, it even looks like him. So, that, is a humorous thing, but the film obviously I don't think, has that bent to it or wants you to think of it that way. But he was trying to fuck them over just because he was a petty asshole, pretty much, and wants to look good in the eyes of Henry Ford II.
But didn't even care if he looked good as long as they looked bad.
Yeah.
He literally had no actual motivation other than fuck these guys.
If it wasn't clear, it's personal with him. Yeah, I got that. Thanks.
No kidding.
May I just say though, I think he was very effective because I was really hoping that someone would punch him. I was very disappointed when no one
his
slugged
entire
him.
character is meant for that.
Yeah.
So maybe it's them trying to figure out how to build the best car, but I feel like they felt 10% antagonized by any given thing throughout the film.
I was antagonized.
You were.
Although I will say at any point where there was. At any point where it was oh, this guy could get some real good antagonism points in here, they just brushed him aside like he was no problem at all. At the end of the race, when he was hey, tell him when he calls the guy, tells him to take it easy, Matt Damon's come here, buddy, come here, son, just pulls him off the track. It's what the fuck?
He literally he locks him in a door so he can't meddle with him there, whatever. They do also as 12th grade shit or something, I don't know. But, so given that, the
Giving
film...
him too high of a grade.
The film, whatever, 6th grade shit then. The film wants you clearly to think that, is intending that to be the case. But even old man Enzo, it wasn't, really that much of a factor for all that.
Swarthy Italian
his henchman guy
driver.
Yeah.
Until he loses the race early on, as Steve-O pointed out.
That's the thing, yeah. He's not there at the end.
All right. To be fair, there was multiple swarthy Italian guys driving multiple red Ferraris.
Yeah, but they're all the same.
I wasn't sure what... I thought, the Ferrari's out of here already? Oh, no. There's another Ferrari.
I feel like this is bad that you couldn't tell, that the movie didn't make it clear that was the case, and also that you couldn't tell which one was gone from the race first. I actually thought it was the main antagonist guy.
The guy you stared down.
Yeah,
but it wasn't.
Sure,
it was another swarthy.
Maybe the main antagonist is the door of that car.
Them fucking themselves over in their own designer.
I'm just to say, I'm giving a 1 to BB, not only because I'm associating with Netanyahu, who's the greatest antagonist of our generation, but I actually wanted to see a character get slugged. Whether he was an effective antagonist or not, it was effective in
antagonizing you as an audience member, and also for the BB connection thing. Sure,
it was mostly because I really wanted to see this smug suit get punched in the face.
What do you think, Steve-O?
I mean, I can't give him a 1 just for for how easily he was brushed aside when things really were getting tough, and B, I didn't think of it until you mentioned it, but you're absolutely right. He is a fucking villain out of a comedy from the 90s, and Now I can never get that out of my head.
You like
I saw it immediately.
I can't believe you didn't. I swear to you, in the third or fourth scene he was in, I'm like, seriously, is this the guy from Billy Madison or what? Like, that thought ran through my head, and like, it's perfect. But I think on that front, I also, you guys know I like nebulous things, but I think this one was too nebulous and too cut up. Therefore, it didn't like all gel together for an antagonistic force.
The movie says Ford versus Ferrari. Ferrari is like almost a non-entity in this entire
Ford versus
thing.
themselves because they can't get out of each other's way.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna end up with a 0. You're giving it a 1 for those reasons.
Yes.
So
I legitimately dislike the character.
No, it's cool.
No
I get your argument.
And I agree. He wasn't a major threat, but he was one of those persistent worms.
Yeah.
That kind of you think he showed up again to. Like, every time there's a lull in the movie, he shows up to be
he literally weasels himself into
that is one thing that like, as soon as I was watching, I was like, what are you, fucking worm tongue in this movie? Like, you're just like pouring poison into Henry Ford's ear.
Yeah. He's a Shakespearean villain if Shakespeare wrote a fucking Adam Sandler movie. So I like that. Yeah, all right. So let's move on to protagonist then, and that'll be you.
Matt Damon is... Actually, I think that this is actually the strongest part of the film.
I tend to agree as well.
Performances by Matt Damon and Christian Bale. I like seeing Christian Bale have a little bit of fun, which is surprising because he's usually a very serious man. And Matt Damon was good in this. I mean, like, it showed a little bit of emotional range, but stayed with his Matt Damon-esque.
Matt Damon.
I have nothing like.
They're fun.
They were sympathetic. Like, I was rooting for them at moments,
but not the whole film.
Sure. Sometimes I'd be like, "Yeah, okay, I'm with you guys," but
I have to agree. I think this is the strongest part of the film. Big ups to Matt Damon for finally getting his second role as the character named Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Well done.
Deep pull.
And Christian Bale as Ken Miles does a really good... he does a mostly really good job. There are points where I was like, what the fuck? Like, when he's, like, describing the perfect lap to his son on the track, I was like... I don't know. I kind of, like... rolled my eyes at that scene, but there are a lot of times where I thought he did a fantastic job as well. So I'll have to give the two of them credit for pretty strong protagonists in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree that they are indeed the protagonists. Like, you follow, they're good friends. Like, even though they sort of like rib each other here and there and get into like a friendly fight, if you will, because they're trying to make doing the best. They're not they're
working class geniuses.
Yes, exactly.
Something to be.
Something to race. So like I did believe their friendship. So one funny thing, this isn't something I made up, but I saw a review or two here and said like this movie features one good actor and one great actor, and you can guess which one they thought was which. But like it's still fine. Yeah, they did. I believe them as their characters. Now, again, I don't know. We don't know as much about how the people were like in real life. We can research that, I suppose, if we really want to. But
I have no interest in the history of this film.
I agree that they did. I'll say this, Steve. Like the reason I thought you felt like that scene and maybe some other ones, I blame that on the script, not on the acting. Like what they had him say and do.
Sure, it would have been.
It could have been so much
like,
more
so fucking cringeworthy in the hands of a worse actor.
Exactly, I agree. So they made.
But we're talking about the characters here, not necessarily the people playing
I get it,
them.
but like I still like bought into it enough because they're good actors. They sold me on being the characters. For the most part, I do agree with you guys that this is probably like one of the, if not the most standout part of the film is their portrayals and their performances as these characters.
Although I might suggest that Christian Bale was playing a Brit who had never met a Brit, but had maybe read a book on British slang or seen British television.
Which is so meta. As Christian Bale playing that one.
Yes.
It's like Dan Stevens in Legion.
Sure.
Anyway, deep pull if you get that one.
I get what you mean though about it. But I still think their performances were probably like the highlight of this film relative to everything else. So I'm giving them a 1 as well. You guys seem to be doing the same.
Yep.
All right, Steve-O. let's move on to the secondary characters or supportings.
All right, so there's wife, kid, Miles.
Molly and Peter, I believe, are Miles' wife and kid.
Sure.
name.
There's the Punisher.
They get no interesting shit. There is the Punisher. He's there.
He's their marketing guy, I think. He's like part of the team.
Being, Bernthal being very
Bernthal by way of John Hamm.
non-Punisher. Yeah, actually, yes. And he does a fine job.
He actually has a good commanding presence of the screen because I noticed not only because he's the Punisher, but like he was more noticeable in a way than the other actors around him.
Yeah,
he has a gravitas, if you will, like and the looks he gives people, even if he's not speaking. Sure.
There's Ford, Enzo, Ferrari. I don't know. Like for the most part, other than Bernthal, pretty much everybody was either didn't have any kind of like redeeming character arc or interesting things about them. They were mostly like set dressing. I felt like,
I kind of feel the same way.
And like even Shelby's buddy that was always there was like
the John Wooders guy.
Yeah. His mentor mechanic, if you will.
Yeah, it was like, all right, this guy's fine, I guess, but he doesn't do or anything or change at all. He's got fucking hour and a half of screen time and no character arc at all.
He starts out the Mickey from Rocky of Mechanics and ends up the Mickey of Rocky.
I mean, we argue that the protagonist didn't have character arc, so you expect the secondary characters to have
exactly. So I don't know. I could almost give it a 1 for Bernthal, but I don't know if he's strong enough. Why don't you guys go and I'll continue speaking and I'll decide.
Well, mold over, but I'm leaning on a softer 1. Yeah, Bernthal was definitely the standout part of the supporting cast. Although, so here's one that's tripping me up, Steve-O. I think his wife and kid could have been removed from the film and it still would have been fine, but I get why they're there and it does add something to his character, as Ian did point out. Yeah, as he pointed out, I was rediscussing right after the film. So, and I thought the portrayals were fine. Now, granted, they didn't do much other than support their husband/dad, sure, but I thought they were played pretty well.
I did like the scene where she was driving really fast to force.
She was mad at him about and
that added to a dynamic in their relationship. I understood why she was with him and why she was attracted to him.
I believe their relationship, so that's a pretty good point. So that kind of adds to pros to giving it a 1. And everyone else was perfectly fine. Yeah, old man Phil, I think was Shelby's helper, mentor, mechanic guy, and he was fine. Now, again, he didn't change much, Steve-O, but he added to the believability of their dynamic, of their chemistry. So while it wasn't all standout or anything, I don't think they did a bad job. And anything that felt cringy or stilted or awkward, I will blame mostly on the script of what they had them say versus the acting. So I think I might err on a softer 1 and give them all decent credit, with Bernthal being the obvious standout.
One, I actually, with what little we had of Ferrari, I really liked him, especially his contempt for Ford. And I really liked the actor who portrayed Henry Ford II. Because
he was fine too, good point.
He had some comedic moments. He did seem the fact is, even though he felt one-dimensional a lot, it was he was prideful. He easily swayed by someone. He liked people who challenged him weirdly and respected people who would give him blunt, harsh truths, almost as if he enjoyed that kind of punishment type character. I don't know. It's very, to me, he had a little bit more depth to him than a lot of the other characters in this movie did. And
that's well said.
And we saw him shit himself.
In theory. Well, we didn't see that, but it was heavily implied.
we didn't see the act itself, but we saw the face after.
Didn't see the shit.
That was the tears of a man who shat himself in a race car.
Enjoy of how fast it went. But sure. So that means you're giving it a 1?
I think you probably convinced me that it can go to a softer 1.
It rolls over the finish line for a 1.
Soft one. Yeah.
Sure.
It's finished as second because it started out far behind.
All right, fair
Or
enough.
far ahead.
But it's going to be a 1 for you guys officially. Alrighty, me too. So that'll bring me to dialogue. I'm starting off with 0, as I've just alluded to a couple of times. I felt as if the actors were doing the very best they could with what they were given to say and do, and it was just not that engaging, and some of it was a little like eye roll inducing, like in a sense. Like I was like, it's lame. It just doesn't. It was wooden a bit. It fell flat. Like they could have punched it up a bit, I think, with some of the banter and even like some of the jokes. Like, sure, I'm sorry, but the 60-year-old, 65-year-olds around us laughed at them, but I did not. And it's just a difference there. But I just felt overall there were some unnecessary things, like Steve, like him talking to himself sometimes in a race car. Like, yeah, they had to break up the silence or the thunderous engine with something. I get it. But even like interactions and stuff, like when they were like jawing at each other, seemed a little flat, and it just wasn't engaging to me. So it wasn't terrible, but I don't think it was even enough to a workman like journeyman one in this case for me. Gutty.
I want to bring up the engines because I missed perhaps 1/4 to 1/5 of the dialogue to engine noise in the background or thick accents, whether Texan or British. And I really wish this movie had subtitles so I could hear what was going on. Maybe I'm getting old, but like they're walking through like a car factory, and like the buffers and the
people are welding
and,
shit. Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to understand what's happening in this film, and I don't know. I'm missing like every other piece of dialogue. So I'm going to give it a 0 for that because especially in the first half of the film,
it was just distracting. You're saying?
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a 0 as well. It's the dialogue just wasn't that great, and yeah, like you've been saying this whole time, Scott, it just wasn't a terrific script. Now, I'm sure there are people who will disagree with me about that, but they're wrong, so it's fine. I want to give this a 0, and I think we can move on.
All right, that'll bring us to style. Yui.
I feel that there's some kind of distracting CGI in the car race things, but I want to say overall, I liked the aesthetics of this. I liked the... I'm a sucker for kind of a stylized period pieces. And yeah, there was references galore.
For sure, yeah.
It didn't feel as egregious as...
But it wasn't forced. Or something like that.
What was that film I mentioned earlier?
American Graffiti.
It felt like less forced than that, but it did but there are like it had subtle hints and nods. Like there's the one, the very famous suntan lotion thing with the girl's bottom being bit by the dog. Like there's like little hits and nods, and I understand that again. There's a lot more slipped in for nods in for our parents' generations, but. Overall, I felt that I liked the visual style of this film, and if for anything else, it was a good look. It looked good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I don't have too much to say about the style. I thought the style was pretty good. Nothing like I'm gonna go gaga over, but it was good enough for a 1 at least for sure. Cool. Car designs and stuff like that, and like a period piece type stuff that you're talking about, and like all the suits that all the Ford folks had, and like all
the glasses,
and the and Christian Bale's always in his mechanic's gear and a towel rag hanging out of his back pocket and all that. I mean, it looked pretty good, so I'll give it a 1 for that.
Cars, I'm sure this is glorious.
I think I read. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I read that they recreated an old racetrack just specifically for this.
I mean, that's cool. That's a neat little piece of trivia. Sure.
So
there is one last thing I want to say. I thought it was actually a good implementation when the final track. They had his son, Christian Bale's son's character make a drawing,
a small scale diorama
oh, this is actually an inoffensive way to give me information about what the track
Right.
looks like.
If you were unfamiliar,
And I wasn't familiar. I'm like, oh, I actually really liked this as opposed to doing exposition dump for this. I thought it was a very
I'm gonna watch that second turn because it's on.
way of doing it.
You're right. You would have seen that shit in other films as well. So yeah, I mean, like, I actually was going into this with a softer Zero in style, but as I thought a bit more about it and took a step back, like, the only thing I disliked, not even disliked, but I felt the soundtrack was oddly placed. I don't know how to describe it. Like, the tracks they chose were like sort of like generic like background music, but some of them didn't fit the scenes I thought that they used them in. So that kind of off-put me.
I didn't notice that, but
That's the thing I noticed the most about it. But otherwise, yeah, the shots are fine, and like as you said, E, that it's a racing sports movie, so there's only so many ways you can like cut to the guy like hitting the accelerator and then the clutch and then the shifter and then outside, then a shot of like as the cars come up onto the track. Like,
actually, some of the crashes were impressive.
they actually look pretty.
Yeah.
I guess that's fair, but I'm saying like there's only so many ways you can do that, so I thought they did it fine enough, given that being the case, and everything else is perfectly fine, pretty much. So yeah, I'll give it like an okay, softer one, but I don't think it's too terrible or anything like weirdly out of place for a Zero. So I will agree there.
Sounds good.
All right, and bring us home, Steve-O. Do you recommend Ford v Ferrari?
Yeah. Not really. I don't think so. I mean, it's fine, but it's long, and
I agree.
there
20 minutes too
are.
long.
This is a year that so far hasn't been super great for movies that at least that I've seen.
Aside from May 24th.
But aside from
Shit.
A24, but I mean, there are plenty of movies this year that I would watch before this one, and yeah, I mean, it's just not. I mean, it depends. If you're really into cars and you were around when this shit was going on, 50 years ago or whatever it is,
Like
you probably eat this shit up.
Like
man.
I said,
You'd probably
my
love it.
dad's gonna fucking love this
Yeah.
film.
But
Your
not
parents
for me
are gonna
or
love it.
many people that I know. I would say aren't gonna be huge fans. But maybe I'm wrong.
So I mean,
Who
you're not
knows?
giving it a 0, though. I mean,
I
you
am
are.
giving it a 0,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's mean you're not recommending it. I mean, yeah, I'm mostly. I'm on the same boat. Like, it's not a shit film. Don't get me wrong. It's fine. It does its job. Tells the story it pretty much sets out to, and in a fine enough way, inoffensive enough way, if nothing else. But I personally also wouldn't recommend it. And like as I mentioned on the outset, the only reason we decided to do it is because it has, as of this moment, it's getting a decent, like, it has an okay shot of being in the Oscar films. Now, it'd be nice if it is. That means we didn't waste our time seeing this film. But if it isn't, I'm going to be like, I wasted my time seeing this film because now it's not an Oscar film. So that's pretty much the reason I'm giving it a 0. Like, it's okay. Like I said, maybe this isn't for us, but our parents are going to love it. To reference some Back to the Future there. But that's my thoughts on it.
It's an inoffensive film,
Yeah, that's it.
but it's definitely generational. I'm interested in the correlation between the people who like Ford versus Ferrari and the people who vote for Biden. But,
Sure. Biden's probably seeing
I
it.
think there's really like boomers would probably love this. Millennials would probably think like,
Yeah, whatever.
It's all right because there's no real like kind of. It's not an engaging enough plot to really attach you, and I think it's leaning heavily on. I wouldn't necessarily nostalgia, but probably
The
nostalgia
memories
for
of that era, which is
era.
a close line. Yeah.
But it's not super sappy about that world
Right.
either, which makes me not hate it.
Sure.
I wouldn't recommend it to anyone I know, aside from the elderly members of my family.
Yeah.
I'd probably tell my dad that he'd probably enjoy seeing it, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And my dad specifically isn't this kind of stuff, so, but I'm just saying, in general, we're not. So, again, not to say it's a shitty film or bad or anything, just not for us. We acknowledge that and wouldn't recommend it. Alrighty, so with that, I'll give out the final scores. Steve-O, you and I have given it 5s apiece, and Ian one more 6, mostly because of the BB thing on the antagonist spot, pretty much.
I hated it.
I get it.
Slug someone like that.
But otherwise, he pretty much agreed for the reasons why. Yeah, so that equals or comes out to a 5.3 average, which is like, yeah, it's a middle of the road ish film. It's okay, not amazing. See it if you're into this stuff. If not, you're not missing anything really.
Yeah.
And with that, I think that'll do it. I have been your pit stop host, Scott Thurlow, and I've been here with my crew / engineer designers, Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Go Speed Racer.
Slow Speed Racer, and Stephen Amosi.
Vroom vroom. See you guys later.
And we'll see you next time.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or mods?